In 1923, a small black Florida town named Rosewood was erased from the map. Fueled by a white woman's lie that she had been raped by a black stranger, an angry white lynch mob swept into Rosewood and burned it to the ground. For over 60 years, the survivors kept their story secret, that is, until now. Director John Singleton, known for his work on Boys in the Hood and Poetic Justice, recounts the four-day massacre in the new film Rosewood, and I am pleased to have him back on this program sitting at this table. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Tell me first how you feel about this film, about making this film, about this story. What's inside of John Singleton that connects here with this story?
I am so, I'm proudest of this film out of any film I've made so far. You know, I look at the pictures that I've made, and I think personally they represent different stages in my life. You know, my first film was my entry level into the business and the film industry. You know, the other two films are making my way towards this film, you know. And this film, for me, I think is my most mature work. I think that the experience of making this film has, in a way, transformed me as a man and as a filmmaker.
Stop there. How has it transformed you as a man?
It's transformed me as a man because I went down south with so many, you know, prejudices of what I thought it was going to be a black man working down south with, I mean, the South that we went to was the real South, not, you know, this is like Central Florida, you know, so we're talking about people who are not even used to movie crews at all, and we shot in the swamp. But I had, you know, like, you know, me in the swamp shooting a movie about an incident, a very deep, strong racial incident that had been suppressed for many years with people who were one or two generations away from the people who had done this. So I had a tremendous amount of trepidation in going into it about the challenges of what that would be. And I think that, you know, in the process of making this film, I surmounted those challenges, and it's made me a better man. And I think it's given me a kind of like a patriotic fervor in a sense, you know, because the filmmakers that I really admire, you know, the old American filmmakers like Wells and John Huston and, you know,
John Ford, people
and John
like that.
Ford, you know, they were Americans in the sense that they saw challenges and mountains and they climbed them and they surmounted them, and boom, you know, if they wanted, John Huston, if he wanted to go hunting, he'd go to write a script and go to Africa and shoot it, you know, or Mexico, and I've always admired that. And this is the first film that I've ever done that was outside of Los Angeles, outside of the city, totally on location, where we had to totally build, you know, two towns, a big town, Rosewood, which is a predominantly black town, and a small white town, Sumner. And it took so much out of me. I mean, it just like, you know, it seems like everything that had been doing up to this point had been the culmination of this motion picture.
Everything you've done prepared you for this motion picture.
Me, yes.
And you said to me as you sat down, you want to talk about American films because what?
I think that we've gotten away from what has truly made America special in terms of its cinema, and I think the only thing that is truly American about film right now at this point is the sense of the spectacle. We've always been about the spectacle, you know, about the event, but the heart is not there. I mean, there's you know, there's a few, you know, tried and true films, you know, small, but on the whole, it's not like it even was, you know, in the old studio system when, you know, where you had like, you know, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, you know, or the films like The Searchers, you know. I mean, you don't have there's not a combination of the spectacle and the heart, you know. I think, you know, they have one, but the other is very much lacking. And I've always approached motion pictures from a standpoint, and maybe I've been naive, that I'm trying to make films that will inspire me to make more films, you know. So I'm not walking through the work. I'm trying to make films that I'm very passionate about, that hopefully in creating these pictures, I can inspire other people to be passionate about my work. You see?
Mm.
So,
You
and it's very hard in a business where that is not the norm. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like sometimes very much an anomaly.
Who do you admire today who's working as a director? You mentioned you saw an interview I did with Billy Bob Thornton.
I admire Billy Bob. I think
because he does what he went and told a story that he knew.
That's special to him.
Special to him in his area of the country.
Yeah, with no pomp and everything.
Rural America.
Just, yes, and it's something very specific, and it's something, you know, very different, but it's very American, you know. Or Fargo, you know, Joel Cohen. I like it. I just really think that if we're going to get anywhere going into this next century, we have to, of course, you know, we have to feed the machine, and we have to keep the engines rolling and everything, because if the studios didn't make money, then...
Tell me the story and how you came on the story so that America will know what you're talking about. I mentioned it briefly in my introduction.
Well, I first heard of Rosewood by reading an Esquire article, and I had no intentions of making a motion picture out of it until I got a call from John Peters, who I had known as the head of Sony Pictures. Right. And he flew me down to Florida, and I met the people the survivors, 4 of the survivors. Their names were Wilson Hall, Arnett Goines, Willie Evans, and a woman named Minnie Lee Langley. And they, you know, sitting there talking to them, you know, these people were all in their mid-80s. And they told me of Rosewood and how they lived in this prosperous town, and it was predominantly black. It wasn't all black, but it was predominantly black. And how their lives were kind of like, if not angelic, but pretty much well-to-do. You know what I mean? They didn't really want for anything.
They had a good thing.
They had a good thing going on. And how this town was better off than the neighboring town. Rosewood was kind of like, you know, it was a town that's brought it up out of the earth, whereas the other town was a company town. It was Sumner, and the people of Sumner really all worked in the lumber business or turpentine, and it was a company town, and the company owned the houses and the land and the store, and how this economic tension between the black town and the white town added to the racial tension that was already there during Jim Crow South. And, you know, this woman, Minnie Lee Langley, specifically her testimony my talk with her really hit me at home because, you know, although she was in her mid-80s, it seemed like, you know, this had happened to her when she was 9 years old. It still welled within her. Every time she would talk about it, it was as if it was happening again, you know. And I had the effect of
the experience was right beneath the surface for
yes,
her.
it was right there, you know, for me. And I had the effect of, you know, here she is in her 80s, and here I was, you know, 28, and I'm thinking she's transferring that information to me, and I felt like in a responsibility to try to make sure that the story would go further and as many people as possible would hear it.
All right, I just want you to look at one clip. This is when the sheriff urges Sylvester and his family leave town for a while because the whites from Sumner were coming after them. Anything else we need to say about this?
It's with the actors are Michael Rooker and Don Cheadle.
And Don Cheadle, all right. Roll tape, here it is. Rosewood, John Singleton.
Won't you be a good boy and go visit some of your other relatives for a little while, huh? I am trying to help you here.
You said to me as we were watching this, a powerful actor.
Powerful actor.
He's got what, a voice, you said?
He's got the voice, he's got the presence, you know, he's got the...
Command,
you know, you watch him and he's interesting to look at, too.
Yeah. When you were there, what did this do for you? I mean, what did this, other than thinking of yourself as a filmmaker and thinking that you ought to, somebody, as you say, told you that you were born to do this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Destined. One of the relatives.
Right.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
Well, at the time, I was you know, knee deep in the water and everything. I mean, there were many times I just wanted to quit. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. Well, I couldn't quit. I mean,
but you
in
wanted
the process,
to.
but because it took so much emotion out of me, with the, hanging bodies up on the trees and dealing and trying to be distant from the fact that I'm guiding these people, because we didn't show like the real racist part in it, guiding these people to be true crackers, you know what I mean, in the lynch mob. I had to be emotionally close to the material and at the same time distant from it so that I can do what was needed technically as a director. And it was a give and take, It was something that I never really had to go through in making a film before.
How could it have stayed silent for so long? I mean, I first became aware, as I told you, with a
60 Minutes.
60 Minutes piece by Bradley.
Yes. Well, the people that it happened to, they really didn't talk about it very much amongst their family members. There was one man, I think it was Arnett Goins, I'm not too sure, but he didn't mention it to his wife for at least 35 to 40 years. And I think there was a tremendous amount of shame amongst the people who survived Rosewood, because they felt like, if this happened to them then, it could happen to them again. It happens to some people who are victims. On the part of the people who did this deed, they denied it just out of straight denial, that the fact that they could ever do that in their lives. And a lot of people who took part in this incident, in the mob, it was they were known to have gone crazy. I mean, mentally insane.
Just dealing with what they'd done?
Yeah, I mean, there's been several studies on it, throughout the years of mob violence, of what it is when a group of people get really riled up and they go and they say that their actions were dictated by the frenzy of the group. They made no individual thought. And one thing that we try to do in the film is show that, the hero, the classic struggle and of mankind is that individual versus the group, but the individual in a certain time in any society has to triumph against the norms or the laws of society, to do what is right. There's always that give and take, and that's what we show in this picture. Set
this scene up. The women and children rush through the woods to board the train. That man and John Wright, played by John Voight, and man played by Ving Rhames, they've arranged to pick them up and take them to safety. What else should we say? This will give you some sense of the...
Well, you set it up as
well as
I could.
All right. Roll tape. Here it is, Rosewood.
Sweet Jesus, Lord, won't you guide me now?
You said to me it's scary.
Very scary.
To think it could happen here.
Yes. And this was a way of life. Rosewood was a very special case, but there are hundreds of Rosewood throughout American history. Dozens of stories like this. Reconstruction was a time where there was a huge migration from the south to the north and to the west. You had segregation, so black people had to form their own townships in different parts of the United States. And several times, whenever those towns were economically more viable than the neighboring white towns, they were destroyed by angry whites.
Tupac Shakur, your friend.
Yeah, Pac.
Tupac, I mean. Yeah. Tell me, he must have knocked you for a...
Well, it didn't knock me for a loop. And I can say this because, I knew, Pac. It seemed to be expected, but I didn't know when it would happen.
Just knew somehow it was going to come down like this?
It was a road. It was a road that was inevitable. And it's hard to say inevitable, but, it just seemed inevitable. It saddens me, but it's like, you can't save people from themselves.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Even if you're their friend, it's
nothing you could tell him 1,000 times that this road is going to where it ended.
You can't.
You are an example of a very successful young black man. heralded for your talent and success in a range, a spectrum of publications. Too many young black men like you are caught up in the judicial system in America.
True.
Huge numbers, more than 50%, I think, in certain age groups.
True.
How do you think we turn that around, and what's the role of the filmmaker?
Well, I mean, this is very difficult for me in the sense that, you know, I've been trying to divide the whole thing of me as a filmmaker with, you know, with all the other things, because inevitably, you know, you have the whole thing of the social questions and stuff. I'm not trying to become a social activist or answer the questions of society, but all I can say is that hopefully, you know, people can look at me and I can talk and everything and say how I navigated the waters. I don't have a criminal record. Not to say that I've never been in a position where I could have gotten a criminal record in one time in my life, but it's been a matter of luck, and it's been a matter of making the right decisions at the right times in my life. I mean, a person can do something at the age of 12 and 13 that can alter their lives inevitably, irrevocably, for the rest of their lives. You know, just one little thing, and you know, I think that there's not enough people that there's not enough of that is being talked about. Not only in the cinema, but in television and everything. And I think that the country kind of fosters a self-perpetuating prophecy when it comes to black men in America, that our inevitable path is to go to jail, or to be murdered, you know, or to die in some type of way. That's why you know, Pac in his life, he never expected to reach the age of 30, and there came a point in his life where he, you know, I don't know, I wouldn't say that he didn't want to, because I wouldn't believe that he did not want to, but I think he kind of gave up in a way. He didn't expect to, so, you know, he would do whatever he wanted to do. It gave him a sense of freedom, you know. And I think a lot of people, you know, I can't really make blanket statements, but I want to be careful in that. But I think a lot of people have that mentality, whereas people have been battered down so much in terms of hope for any type of future from an early age, that they just throw their hands up and say, you know, F it. Yeah. I'm going to do this, and this is where it's going to be.
It doesn't really matter, so I might as well go do whatever.
It's, you know, it's going to be a wild ride, you know, and not all of them are famous either. Yeah. You know?
The movie is Rosewood, John Singleton, a tragic story in American history, told well by John Singleton. Thank you.
All right. Good to be here again.
Good to see you.
All right.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.